So we're passing out some paperwork that guys in the remote branches already emailed them with, but it will be up on the screen when I'm going over.
Sam.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's basically, in here in York, there's 4 handouts that everybody should have.
Doug, do you need anything from me? Are you good?
Yep, I think we should be fine. Yep. Okay, everybody in the remote branch is ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everyone here all set? Ready.
Ready to go.
Okay, and feel free to interrupt me with questions as we go along. Speak up on the remote branches though so we can hear you. Okay, so what is a valve? I got a definition from good old Wikipedia online. A valve is a device that regulates, directs, or controls the flow of a fluid, whether it be gases, liquid, fluidized solids, or slurries, by opening, closing, or partially obstructing various passageways. Now what we're going to be concerned with today is ball valves, which is going to be opening and closing. We're not going to get into partially obstructing, which we refer to as regulating in today's session. Ball valves are quarter-turn valves, which means you're turning it 90 degrees. Typically on most ball valves, if it's a lever handle and the handle is sticking out perpendicular to the valve, it's a closed position. If the lever handle is parallel to the valve, it's in an open position. So it's a quick thing that if you're in a facility or something, you can quickly glance at any valve out there and say, that one's closed, that one's open, whether it's perpendicular or parallel. When in the open position, ball valves allow unobstructed flow. And when in the closed position, ball valves stop the flow. Ball valves should not be operated in a partially open or partially closed position. Reason being, you're going to wear out the seals in a valve by doing that. With that being said, there's always exceptions to most rules out there. There are specific balls that they make for valves for regulating. We're not going to get into that today. They're usually like a V shape instead of the round shape going through the ball so that they can regulate the flow to be what they want. And most times they're used with actuators when they're doing those type of regulating valves. Moving on.
That'd be a V-notch.
Yeah, that's one of the terms for the ball valves out there is a ball that actually has a V-notch in it. IPS does not stock any V-notch valves, and the purposes for today's training is trying to get us familiarized and comfortable with the valves that we do stock. Whenever it comes to a specialty valve, we're usually having to go back to the manufacturer to get their help anyway. So, IPS stocks 55 different models of ball valves and 12 different manufacturers with 7 different connection types. It seems like a lot, and it is a lot. There's not too many applications out there that we would not be able to pull from our stock. Where we usually get run into a problem is maybe an odd size, an odd connection. But in general, if somebody's looking for steam application, we got the valve. They want something that's FM approved for fire protection, we got the valve. They want it for air application, we got the valve. Gas, we got the valve. All the valves that IPS stock are used in specific and various applications, and what I mean by that is every valve has been spec'd for a specific application. Every valve can be used in other applications, but there is no one magic valve out there that's going to be able to be used in all applications. Now, the guys in the remote branches, you can't see this, but I did bring 3 examples, and they're all the same size valve, 2-inch size, to the York table here. Just so you can physically see what the difference is in size and how they are the same and how they are different. So the PVC and CPVC valves, they fall under chemical applications, and whenever it comes to chemical applications, I would recommend you looking in NIBCO's chemical resistance guide before making a recommendation to a customer. That can be found on NIBCO's website. You can download it, or you can even place an order with NIBCO to actually have a physical copy sent to you. Now, with the examples that I had brought today to the table, we have the Spears 1839 CPVC True Union Ball Valve, along with the Spears 2329 CPVC ball valve. The difference in the 2 ball valves is that one has an EPDM O-rings, the other one has Viton O-rings. And both of them are the size 2-inch that I brought here. Only one of them is acceptable for potable water, and that's the 2329 because it has the EPDM O-rings. NSF will not, or has never approved the use of Viton O-rings. They have approved the use of EPDM O-rings, and when you look in the handouts that I had printed out for you guys, you'll see that on the right-hand side, on the first page of both the PVC and CPVC ball valves, about midway down, it says about EPDM valves, NSF certified for potable water use. So, even though let's see, this one is the 2329, you can see it's a big difference in size versus the 1839. Physically, the outside diameter of the valve, what makes it up, is just much larger. They're both rated to the same PSI level, though. Why Spears decided to make one valve larger than the other, I haven't really a good answer for that, other than they have 2 different valves. The 1839, though, does have the locking device on it, while the 2329 does not have that option.
Why do you want to have a locking device on it?
Well, sometimes people want to have locking devices on it when they're closing off a valve for service, and they'll put a lock on there so that somebody else doesn't come along and say, hey, look, this valve is closed, we need to open it. If there's a lock on it, it's going to prevent unintentional opening of a valve while someone's working on the system.
How's that a locking device then? All you do is pull the trigger up and turn it, right?
Well,
Nope,
but
there's holes.
on the
Okay, I
trigger,
was
there's
going to say,
holes.
that can't be locked. Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't see the holes in your hand.
They refer to it as a locking device because it has the holes for where you
Gotcha.
can actually put a lock in there to prevent the valve from being open.
Can you lock it open and closed? Or closed?
Yes. There's notches on both the open and the closed position so that it'll pop down in and make the holes available for you to put a lock in there. You can pass those around. Now I also brought a 2-inch red-white valve, which I sent the printouts to everyone, and everyone in here has it, just to kind of show you the difference and also the size with versus the PVC or CPVC valves that I had pulled as well. Now with the red-white valve, it is NSF approved. It's a lead-free valve, so it can be used with water. But the difference with that valve versus the CPVC valves, it can't be used in chemical applications, or most chemical applications, I should say. Whenever it comes to volatile chemicals, you always want to think plastic. Which before I ever started in IPS, I thought that was kind of strange, because I think chemicals would be something that would melt or something, but that's not how it works. If you put a chemical with a metal, a lot of times it'll eat right through that metal, depending on what the chemical is. Okay, so now moving down to steam applications. I didn't bring in the examples for these, but I think most of us that have been here, whether you worked in sales or not, are familiar with the Milwaukee valves that we stock. We stock the 20 CSORs with the O3 seats. The O3 seats are specifically made for higher pressure steam applications. They are rated up to 250 psi steam. The O3 at the end is what indicates that it has that seat in it, versus the O2, which we also stock, which is only rated to 150 psi steam. Now, we just recently, within the past year, started stocking another valve that has a lower price point than the Milwaukee CSORs with the O3 seats, and that's the Sharp 54574N. It's a carbon steel ball valve. Their seats are called neck seats, but they are rated also to the 250 psi. When you're running across customers where the price is going to be the determining factor on whether we get the job or not, or be able to sell that valve, remember we have that Sharp valve in stock that we can really save some dollars for the customer by recommending that valve.
What's the end connection on that Sharp?
The Sharp is a threaded end connection, NPT, and just like the 20 CSOR-03 valves that we stock, they are an NPT connection as well.
NPT stands for?
National Pipe Thread, which is another thing that we will be going over on some of the meetings.
Sorry, Doug.
No, by all means, please keep asking questions.
The Sharps are only half through 2. There is no 1/4 and 3/8 on that in stock. They do make it if you need it, but we don't stock the 1/4 and 3/8.
Good point to make. And the other thing is I think that from the standpoint of price points, the smaller size that you get in a valve, the less it costs. So even if we did stock it, you wouldn't see as great a price difference as you do with an 1.5 inch and a 2-inch valve between the two types of valves there.
Is there a wrong way to install a valve? I mean, a lot of them you see the flow rate, going a certain direction. What does it matter if the same on each side?
Some valves do have an arrow for flow direction. I think for the majority of ball valves, I'm not sure if, let's take a look here at this one. Like if you take a look at the red-white, it doesn't have a directional indication. There are some valves that are specifically made for flow. Check valves are definitely one of those type of valves as well.
I can see that.
But that's something that here the installer really does need to take care when he is installing. The main thing to kind of remember, especially when it comes to threaded valves, is if it's a threaded valve, threaded fitting, threaded anything, the customer's always going to need pipe dope and or Teflon tape. So it's another add-on that we can always ask the customer about. So doing threaded valves, do that. It's the same thing as if we're doing flange valves. Flange valves, they need a gasket. So, ask them if they need flange bolts, flange gaskets. Okay. Now, one of the handouts and printouts that I had emailed to the guys in the other branches is giving some of the more common four most common applications that we do run across. Starting with steam. I tried to put this kind of in an order in which I would recommend you trying to recommend it to a customer. So at the top you can see we have the Shark. And the only reason I put that at the top was just because it does have a lower price point, that if you are offering it to a customer, it's going to be tough for the competition to beat our pricing on that Shark valve with the steam seats. But when you are quoting it, make sure you are telling the customer that these have steam seats rated to 250 psi, because the tendency for a lot of our competition out there is just to quote the regular run-of-the-mill valve, 150 psi steam rating. And if you're not quoting apples to oranges, they will beat us on that. They'll quote a brass or bronze valve rated to 150 psi. And the reason why we don't want to do that is from the standpoint of the customer. We don't want them coming back a month or two later saying, hey, your valve, it's already leaking. You know, we need a new valve. We'd rather that the customer buy one valve, have it work for 2 years, and have that good relationship, than for them to be coming back to us every month. And if they keep in track and stuff, they're going to find another vendor to go to. Milwaukee, we really do want to push the Milwaukee valves whenever we can. Now, after the first two on there, I have the CSOR and the SSOR. The SSOR, 20 SSOR, are the stainless steel version with the O3 seats. All the first three valves there are all rated to 250 psi. I have some valves underneath there that are rated to 150 psi, where I recommend using them when the customer's saying, well, look, I don't have anything going above 100 psi. Why do I need this steam seat in here? We still would want to recommend that higher pressure steam seat because it's going to last them longer. But if they insist saying, hey, we don't want this, just give me a lower price valve, these are the valves that I would recommend you use, starting with the 20 CSOR and the 20 SSOR with the O2 seats. Carbon steel, I recommend more often than bronze when you're dealing with steam. When you're coming into where somebody's saying, well, just give me a bronze valve, we do have the 20 BSORs that we stock. They are a better built valve than the BA100s. So that's why I don't have a BA100 on there. Even though it has 150 PSI rated steam, it's going to wear out faster. I did put on some Nidcos and some Jomars on there. The main reason why I put those particular ones on there is that the customer in those particular sizes, they're saying, look, I just want a run-of-the-mill valve, something cheap. These are valves that we have that we're trying to get rid of. So until we get rid of them, they're going to stay on this sheet for recommendations for somebody who wants a valve that just wants a cheap valve to put in stock that they're only running 50 psi steam. Normally, if they would want something like that, you'd say give them a BA100. But like I said, we're trying to help our company out, not as well as the customer.
How much do you pay him to say those things, Doug?
Okay. Any questions about the steam valves?
Should ask you that. And all those are on hand in stock.
Yeah, and
right
everything
now,
that
right?
we're
Everything
going
on
over
this
right
sheet.
now is stock valves
Yep.
that I want to get us familiar with.
Would it be too much to put the steam pressure rating on the description? That way customers do know.
It's an idea. I mean, we can ask Bob, Mr. Bentley on as well about doing some of that kind of stuff. I know that there are some valves that have it, but like the ones where they are specific, like the Sharps and maybe the Milwaukees with the O3 seats, it's probably a good idea to put on there 250 SWP, meaning steam working pressure.
Yeah.
It makes it a quick thing, especially if you're new and you're not familiar with some of these valves. So,
Well, and the customer too, if they don't need it.
who was that again?
Scott.
That was me.
Oh, okay. Yep. What did you say?
So that actually helped me out a lot.
Okay, well, I know Mr. Bentley wrote that down, so it's going to be on his list of things to do here. So, We'll get that done, and it should probably be done in the next couple days.
Be done by next Wednesday.
How about a week? Okay, moving on to gas-rated ball valves. AY McDonald, I have that listed first because the AY McDonald valves were specifically made for natural gas applications. Those valves do have other ratings like the steam working pressure ratings, the WOG water oil gas ratings, but they had the CSA rating, which is the Canadian Standards Association, and also the UL listed. So they're specific for it. I know that a lot of times we get into, especially the people that have been here a while, we get into the, I don't want to say rut, but the routine of when somebody's asking for a gas valve, first thing we do is the Watts FBVs. And they are rated for gas. And they are probably less expensive than the AY McDonald's. But the AY McDonald's were specifically made for gas. The second one I have on there is our good old American M100. Now, over in the size column, you can see it's only a 3/4 inch. We have a lot of these valves in stock, and we really need to keep in mind when somebody's asking for a gas application, if they're asking for 3/4 inch, please at least ask if the customer can use this valve, because first off, it's very inexpensive. Has Teflon seats in it. The Teflon seats do not crack or break like a Viton or an EPDM after a while. They're good for as long as we'll have the valve. So it's not anything that you have to worry about, well, the seat's probably bad. It's not. Those particular valves have T-handles. And I don't want to say it was a mistake, but it probably was a mistake when we had brought this into stock. T-handles are usually used in gas applications. So it's made for a gas application. So if somebody needs a 3/4 inch valve, chances are they'll probably take it. Lever handles is what we normally stock, and this one has a T-handle, but we have over 900 of these things in stock, so please, people, if you can, let's sell the 3/4 inch Americans.
I know that. No comment from Doug.
We have about 10
Yeah.
or 12 maybe.
I think this was a
Williamsport
Denny
has over
DeSanto
900
thing.
pieces in stock.
Nobody really
Valves.
knows where it came from or
I
why.
think, Doug, I think those AY McDonald's on top are T-handles also, aren't they?
Actually,
Some
well,
are. Some are.
I'm pretty
I was
sure.
going to wait until a little bit later here, but we can
Jumping the
actually
gun.
see. This is one of the things I wanted to go over with you guys on making sure everybody was aware of, especially for the valves that we do keep in stock. Let's see here. For all the valves that we have in stock, we should have spec sheets attached. If we don't, please let me know. So, with
Wait till you
these
hear the story on that.
AY McDonald,
Lisa was going to kill me.
what's that?
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
And Gene got written up because he missed the transfer.
Okay, and you can see with the AY McDonald's, they actually have gas ball valve in the description there. So if ever in doubt, you're looking for a gas ball valve, it's right there. So when you're on the item, you hit Alt Q, and then you hit Alt P, and it brings up the product ID. In the right hand corner, there's an I. If you double click that, it'll show everything that's attached to that item. If it doesn't have the orange I there, that means there's nothing attached, and we need to get some spec sheets attached to it. So, Mr. Bentley-on asked, about these being T-handled, and he was correct. I shouldn't have questioned him. I thought that they were lever handles. So, there you see. It's what would be referred to as a T-handled valve. and we keep it in stock, versus if we go back to they were American 3/4 inch ball valve.
It does say T-handle in it too.
Yeah, that one I think I actually had Mr. Bentley on to add that in there as well. So you can see that the spec sheet actually shows the T-handle on it. Gives all the ratings in the spec sheet. One of these things, and I may have to go back and update a few of our older specs that I had attached. You can see here it has an NSF approval, but this is not a valve that we can use in potable water applications anymore because of the new laws for low lead. So it's something that I will have to maybe, adjust certain things. Can you, Mr. Bentley, can you write down to maybe add that?
You can call me Doug.
Doug.
Is Mr. Bentley on your father?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Doug, he's going to add the not-for-potable application description to that valve. We may want to add it also to the AY McDonald, even though it's listed as a gas valve, but it is brass, so maybe even look into that. Doug.
What does UL listed mean?
Well, I'm going to get to that here shortly. That's actually the next thing that I...
Rich, you're jumping ahead.
Rich, can you guys view
I'll
the
just
spec
leave.
sheets at the counter?
I don't think they
I don't think they
No,
can.
I think
can
only at the one computer in the warehouse office. Only the one. Well, I think they both can do it now. Actually,
At the counter, or just the warehouse
in the
office?
warehouse office.
So if you actually have the customer at the counter, you can't pull it up for them.
I don't think so.
York's the only, at least to the best of my knowledge, York's the only branch that the counter itself does not have web access. And that's why they're not able to bring up the spec sheets. But from what I was told by Lisa, she believes that all of our other counters are able to bring up the spec sheets like that. So if you're ever at the counter, you'd have to use Sean's computer to bring up a spec sheet to see that. Actually, I'll go off on a little bit of a bunny trail here because Rich did ask that question about the UL. Kept that one up. Okay, so meetings and approvals. We'll go off a little bit here, and then we'll come back to the potable water and the fire protection services. Okay, so starting at the top, we have WOG, which stands for water, oil, gas. You're going to see some valves. Most valves are dual rated. They're going to have a WOG or a CWP rating, which stands for cold working pressure, as well as the steam pressure rating. So with valves in general, especially when you're dealing with brass and bronze usually have a 600 PSI WOG rating or CWP rating and 150 SWP rating. That's your run-of-the-mill brass and bronze ball valve. A lot of other acronyms that you're going to see on specifications are the MSS, which stands for Manufacturer Standard Society. ANSI and ASTM we run across a lot, not only in valves but in fittings. The AWWA, American Water Works Association, they're going to be listed for a lot of valves that deal with, well, water, but it's more of the stuff that we would go to Exeter and
Ductile iron.
Yeah, the ductile iron type stuff, LB water, that kind of things are going to have the AWWA ratings. Delta C, approved for food industry use. You're going to see that a lot on not only valves, but sanitary fittings. Sanitary valves, sanitary fittings. NSF 61 approved, the National Sanitation Foundation. If it has that approval on it, it's should be able to be used with potable water. And like I pointed out in the one spec sheet, an old spec sheet from the American, it was NSF approved until the low lead laws came into effect. UL listings. Okay, UL stands for the Underwriters Laboratories. Most spec sheets that you're going to come across, they're going to have this UL in a circle, and they're not really going to say much other than that it was UL approved. But Jomar, they were the best that I've ever seen as far as putting in their spec sheets what specific UL approvals that they did get. And these were the ones that I had found on the Jomar spec sheets. Some saying it's for flammable fluids, some just even stating that it was a trim and drain valve. Again, going back to flammable liquids, LP gas if it was specifically for liquid propane, ammonia shutoff valves. We every once in a while come across where somebody's saying, yeah, I need a valve for ammonia. Most valves can be used with ammonia when you check the NIPCO chemical resistance guide, but the UL listing, that's what a lot of people are going to be looking for whenever they're saying, I want something that's used with that can be used with ammonia. You have to kind of work it out with your customer to find out, hey, are you looking for it to be having an approval, or do you just need to know that the valve can be used with ammonia? Gas shutoff valves, that's going to be the most common thing that you're going to see whenever somebody's saying it's UL listed. The Watts FBVs, they have the UL listing for gas. Compressed gas shutoff valves. And then this last one, which was a real oddity, I think I only found it on one Jomar spec, an MHKZ listing. So I just put word for word what it was actually for, and it lists the different type of gases that valve could be used with.
Doug, you keep saying natural gas, natural gas. What about propane?
Well, and there again, going back to, go up here a little bit. The UL listing, the YSDT for LP gas, that's the liquid propane gas. We would actually have to go back to the manufacturer. If it says that it has a UL listing and you need it specifically for propane, we would actually have to go back either to the manufacturer's rep or the manufacturer and say, hey, I see you got this UL listing. Is it UL listed for propane, or is it just for natural gas? Chances are it probably has a dual rating on there, but it's something that we can't, as a company, assume,
right.
You know. So, if it's saying LP, that's standing for liquid propane. So, there again, first thing you'd be looking for if somebody's asking for liquid propane is looking for that UL listing, and then find out from the manufacturer's rep, is it for liquid propane? Okay, coming down to the last three acronyms that are most common with the specs. The CSA, Canadian Standards Association. When I first researched this, it just seemed kind of odd. We're the United States. Why are we having most of our natural gas ball valves rated with a Canadian standard? I've never could come up with a good answer for that. What I found on their website was the description I have up here on the screen. The Principal Product Testing Certification Standards Development Organization serving the gas industry in the U.S. and Canada. CSA shows that a product's been independently tested and certified to meet recognized standards for safety or performance. So, natural gas, that's the main specification or certification that I'm looking for, is CSA for natural gas. UL is another one, but if they're saying they want natural gas, if I see that CSA rating, I know it can be used with natural gas. FM, factory neutral, they certified valves for fire protection. So FM, factory mutual, fire protection, it starts with the F. That's how I've always kept it straight in my mind. You know, if I ever see that or FM, I know it's a fire protection valve. NACE, National Association of Corrosion Engineers, certified, meets the predefined material requirements for corrosion control and prevention. Now, that's not something that we run across too often, where somebody's asking for a NACE approved valve. I probably came across it twice in my time here at IPS. And again, it's one of those oddities because they might be dealing with a chemical, but they don't want to deal or do any PVC. So that's usually going to be the times when NACE is going to be getting involved. And a lot of times you're going to be quoting some kind of stainless steel or other exotic metal bodied valve, which stainless steel is as exotic as we get as far as what we stock here.
Yeah, I was just looking for some duplex material. I got a lot of no quotes on that.
Yeah. Did you try Sharp?
No, but right now I'm working with Layden.
Okay. Yeah, Apollo valves.
What's that?
Yeah, I said yeah. So the Apollo valves.
Yeah, and Martin Oakwood is the
Okay. Well, I would recommend maybe checking with Sharp because Sharp valves, they do some exotic bodied valves like the Hastelloys, I know. So they might be a good resource for you in that application. Okay, now I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. Going back to potable water valves. Valves that are safe for drinking water. With new law that happened 2 years ago, low lead, or lead-free valves, that's what you're going to be looking for. If a valve says that it's low lead or lead-free, you can assume that it has the NSF approval. There's no reason in the world why a company would go to the expense of making a whole line of low lead or lead-free valves and not get an NSF approval. So if it says that it's low lead or low lead-free, you know it can be used with potable water. Red White is the brand that we stock most of for low lead and lead-free valves, although we have been getting some more Milwaukee valves in stock. When it comes to sizes, I kind of went the route of smaller size to larger here, knowing that the Red Whites are what we mainly keep in stock. The fourth valve down gives you the whole gambit from 1/4 to 4 inch and in threaded sizes. The fifth valve down is the Milwaukee UPBA 400, which is one of the newer valves that we have just started stocking here not too long ago from Milwaukee. We keep in stock a few solder valves, but with the popularity of press valves coming into play, solders being more left to the wayside. So you can see we only really stock two solder valves for low lead. Coming into the press valves, like I said, we got the two different red-white valves, which are basically the same valve, as just the one's an extension going from 2.5 to 4 inch on the pressing. And then Milwaukee, we have from 1/2 to 2 inch in press as well. We have 4 plastic valves that we keep in stock that are have that NSF approval and can be used with potable water, and you never have to worry about low lead or lead-free with the plastic valves. Okay, lastly, we come into the FM approved for fire protection ball valves. We deal with some fire protection. What are some, do you remember some of the fire protection people we deal with, Tina? Customers?
It's like blank.
Commonwealth,
Century.
Century.
Yeah. So we have probably a dozen, probably half, at least half a
That's
dozen
I would say.
customers that we deal with
It's 2 dozen.
that have
Closer to 12.
that deal with the fire protection or want fire protection valves. Not only that, but also for fittings. Again, American, the M100, it has that FM approval. So if we're dealing with a 3/4 inch size, that's right, and let's hope that they're looking for hundreds of them. Red white, again, that's one of our valves that we get such a good price point on that it's hard not to have them at the top of the list for a recommendation for most applications. The old standby, Watts FBV series, they have the FM approval. So people that have been here a while, they probably already knew that, but it's one of those things that the FBVs are just a good fallback valve. They have a pretty good price point, but I think as an inside sales team, we want to try to maybe expand our horizons and not just lean on that crutch of Watts FBV all the time. Partly the reason why I say that is that we can maybe make more GP dollars on some of these other valves as well. You know, so the more money coming in, the better it is for IPS, the better it is for the employees. The last 3 valves I got listed there, the BA 475 Milwaukee, it's not a valve that most people even realize that we keep in stock. It's there. I think it was brought into stock specifically for a particular customer. But just kind of be aware that it is there. It's not one that pops up on the top of the list when you're entering a size and looking for a ball valve. But kind of get yourself used to going down the list and seeing what else is available. The last 2 valves I have on there are valves that we're trying to get rid of. Jomar, they have the FM approval. We only have 1 inch in the one size and 1/2 through 1.5 inches on the solder. Again, the solder is just going by the wayside because of all the pressing applications out there, but every once in a while you run across a person who just doesn't press. Realize that we do have that.
Can we get that FM approved as keywords put in those?
Yeah, we probably could.
Just FM or something?
Verify with Lisa before you. I know you do.
We'll check with Lisa. Make sure that that we can add certain keywords there. I think we should be fine doing that. We just want to make sure. It's a good idea.
Foodie. I don't think that should be.
Yeah. Any questions so far?
Are the UPVAs considered domestic?
That is a very good question. If I was at my computer, I could tell you.
You can go under Milwaukee, and I have a whole. Well, you know what? You have to drill down. I have a list in there that says which ones are domestic.
Is it on the G drive?
It's under Milwaukee, under the vendor.
You don't have to look now.
You don't have to look now. It's a whole list of.
I just wondered what because
You
we
might
have
want
those
to put it
red whites in and we have the Milwaukees in. Milwaukees are 2 to 3 times the price of the red whites.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if
Well,
we have 2 imports.
That's a good point. With the if they're anything like the regular BA 100s,
Yeah.
they're probably
American thing.
have a domestic rating saying that they're over 50% of their cost, and there is a spreadsheet that's why I wanted to look to see if the
I think they are because I
UPVAs
got them for aces and they had to be domestic.
Yeah, but it might be something that I think that maybe I'll see if we can have Milwaukee update that sheet that gives us the not only the domestic ratings but also the Pennsylvania Steel Act ratings, because that's the other one that we run into a lot.
Maybe you ought to show, like,
I think it's all there.
where it's at.
Go in there. I think it's all there.
Is it under Eclipse?
Yes, it's under the vendor.
Okay, so.
Because I had to do some search and that's what they sent me.
Okay, so for everyone watching, what I did is I went under the vendor, and as you can see under the vendor, there's that orange eye again. So if that's an eye there, we can click it. And you can kind of see there's a lot of certifications underneath here. First one there is that UPBA 100s.
And that's all the styles that it pertains to.
So we can click that. We got a certificate of compliance. This certify that the valves listed above and shipped against your purchase order have been manufactured and tested according to the specifications below.
Made in the USA.
Yep, made in USA. So,
Cool.
That's another resource that I know that Tina really does utilize a lot because of dealing with Metso and some of her other customers. So, kind of keep that in mind that not only for items in particular, but vendors. There might be some valuable information listed under vendors that you could find.
There's a
Yeah, but
lot.
the 475 isn't on there.
It's probably on another sheet, because I had Shirley send them all to me.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, but where's the actual listing that they sent us? I mean, I have it somewhere else. I don't
I have mine saved on my desktop,
Yeah.
but yeah. There was one other thing that I kind of wanted to go over with you guys. It deals with ball valves, but not just ball valves. Pretty much any of our stock items, and it's kind of dealing with the PDW. I know that we had that PDW training in the past, but I know myself that if I don't kind of do this on a regular basis, I kind of really lost in how to find spec sheets with the PDW. So I wanted to kind of go over that and see if anybody had any questions with that. So, Spears is one that we were pretty good all the way around with the PDW.
You're in the corner.
Let's see, Spears, we'll stay with the theme of a ball valve here. Stick with the first one. So, similar to how you can find the spec sheet if it's attached, you're going to want to do the Alt-Q, Alt-Key. But instead of hitting the I, there's the PDW at the right-hand corner. Okay. Now from there, you can either hit the Alt-D or you can click the D there. Brings up this page. Now, what you're looking for here, because again, it can get kind of like, whoa, what's this all about? Under the PDW field description, that's what you're looking for to kind of find a spec sheet. So the third one down says spec sheet on it. Now you can either click you can use your keyboard with Alt-W, or you can use your mouse, just click over to the web.
You can get here the same way by just going to Alt-Q, Alt-D, right?
Probably. That's probably how they taught us in the PDW training, and I never wrote it down. I'll try that just so everyone can see it then. But what it should do is take you to the website that has the spec sheet on it. And as you can see, it did. And that should be the way it is with all PDW items. Now, say again how you usually get to the PDW?
Alt-Q, Alt-D.
Alt-Q, Alt-D.
Yep.
There it is. That's a much quicker way than the way I was showing you guys. So again, once you're there, it's just a matter of getting down to the item, hit Alt-W or click the W with your mouse. And it'll take you right to the website. And then from there you can just you can save it to your desktop. Most times why you're doing this is either you have a question about it or the customer needs that specification. And if it's a customer that, especially a customer you're not too familiar with, and they're not sure of the valve for the application, whether it's a stock item or a non-stock item, I recommend you sending that spec sheet along with the quote. Puts it right in front of them. Most times it's a colored picture that they can see what that valve looks like, and they can say, oh yeah, that's what I want, or wait, that's way off base. You know, quote me something else. So that's pretty much what I got here. Is there any questions?
Heather, did you have something?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not a dumb question.
I just because I don't know really anything about any of this, but when you like say someone calls in and they want like a steam rated ball, how do you decide which one they want? Like, because there's that list, and that's
It's a lot of choice, isn't it?
yeah.
I'm going to ask a harder question than that.
Like I know
Okay.
obviously if they say like they wanted a certain brand you pick, but if they don't really know what they want.
Okay. So customers calling up.
Meeny, miny, mo.
Carbon steel, stainless steel.
Run to Doug and ask him.
Okay, so customers calling up, they're saying, yeah, I need a ball valve. Most times they don't tell you that it's steam rating to begin with. They're just saying, yeah, I need a 2-inch carbon steel ball valve. And you have to ask the right questions. So you have to say, okay, is it threaded ends or flanged? Threaded. Okay, we know that's carbon steel. What's going through the valve? Steam. Okay, my first choice right away, without actually even asking what the steam pressure is going to be, is either going to be the 20 CSOR with the O3 seats or that Sharp ball valve. The reason why, I kind of went over it a little bit before, we want to give the customer, especially when they're dealing with steam, the best ball valve that's going to hold up under the circumstances. Now when I bring up that valve, I may say, yeah, this valve's good up to 250 PSI steam. Because there could be a customer, he might be dealing with 400 PSI steam and then this valve's going to blow out. So it's not that you don't want to ask that question, you just want to bring that valve up and then you kind of, go from there. Why you would go with a lesser valve comes into play when you tell them the price. And that's too expensive. And before you let them go and go to another vendor, then you really got to pull it out of them. Well, what steam pressure are you dealing with? Is it low pressure steam? Well, it's probably only going to be 50 PSI steam. Then you come back and you say, well, I still recommend you go with either a stainless steel or a carbon steel body ball valve. But if price is your main issue here, here's a Joe Mar and a 1-inch if they're looking for a 1-inch. If they're looking for a 2-inch, we're going to have to go with, again, I would probably still try to recommend that 20 BSOR. They're probably still going to balk at the price if they're balking at the other prices, though. Then you kind of keep coming down from there and say, well, my least expensive valve is the Watts FBV, 2-inch ball valve. You can get this for $43. Here it is.
Sounds good.
That sounds good for my application. And then you hope that they don't come back and then blame you for giving them a valve that, if after 3 months, is blown out on the seals. Like I said, when we're dealing with steam, we see it. Outside guys probably see it more often than we even hear about it on the inside. It's just, the upfront cost seems expensive, but the cost for them having to go back a second time, if they would have bought it the first time the right way, they would have been way better off, because even if they're going with the cheapy valve, they're spending more time in man hours and paying to have the job redone. And then if they continue to do that, they're just throwing money out the door. We have certain customers that are like that they don't blame us for anything. Their maintenance department just decides this is the valve that I want, and they're going to get it every 2 to 3 months, and they're going to replace the valve like it's on a maintenance schedule. There again, if they get their accountants involved and presidents of companies, and they really get things watched over, that would probably change. So I don't know.
Where do we go if somebody wants a higher rating than 250?
Okay, there's multiple places you can go. Sharp is going to be my first choice, because Milwaukee, you can go to Milwaukee on certain things, but their steam rated seats are just about as exotic a seat that you're going to get that we already stock. Sharp has some other seats that even have a higher pressure, higher temperature rating. They aren't specifically saying that they are for steam, but their pressure and temperature rating gets so high that they can maybe go up to 500, 600 PSI, and the temperature is 500 or 600 degrees. When you're dealing with Teflon, a little over 400 degrees is going to be the max that you can do, which most of these valves have Teflon seats in it, whether it's reinforced or virgin.
Doug, for those of us who are a little less knowledgeable, what is the seat and why does it make a difference to have different kinds? I mean, you sort of got into the why, but...
Let's see, it's probably easier to explain with a spec sheet. Yeah, doing it again.
You know you can't do nothing right when somebody's watching.
That,
You don't know how to type.
It's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's over my shoulder, I can never type.
Hoping this sheet so shows what I wanted to show. Okay, yeah, that cutaway view, actually. Okay, so this view here kind of gives you a cutaway view of a ball valve. So this here is the ball. They have it turned partially, which, like I said, we don't want to do. But it shows you the opening there. Right here, and here, and here, and here. Like I said, it's a cutaway view. Those are the seats of the valve. They go rest against the ball itself. So whenever you're turning the valve on and off, you're causing friction against those seats. They are what keeps. Trying to think of a good way to put this. It's not necessarily an insulator, but it kind of is. I mean, when you think of a gasket on a flange, it's insulating, but it's also sealing. The same way with these seats, or some people refer to them as O-rings. They're serving a multiple purpose. They're insulating the ball against the valve body. If you exceed a temperature on there, those seats are going to melt away, and now your sealing surface is going to make it that whatever media you have is going to be able to go around the ball, whether it's in an open or closed position. So the ball itself and the valve body itself usually can handle most temperature and pressure ratings that are out there. Your weak link is always going to be the seating material. And again, when you're dealing with chemical applications, you wouldn't probably use a metal ball valve, but there are certain ones where you just can't get around it. And there again, they chosen Teflon because Teflon pretty much is good with most chemical, water, steam out there. There are some sealing surfaces that can go to a higher temperature and higher pressure than Teflon, but you lose so much because they're usually chemical specific. Like I said, that's probably the best cutaway view that I can come up with to kind of show you guys, you know, where a seat is located and why it does what it does.
Don't we have a sheet somewhere that shows we go to the chemical resistant guide?
Yeah. And the chemical resistance guide, like I said, we can get off NIPCO's website, but I'll make a note to myself to put it under the G drive, under the ball valve section, so that everyone can get to it there if they want to print it out. But if you want a hard copy, just go to NIPCO. You can order it online. Just put in IPS's mailing address. It doesn't cost you a thing to get it. They don't charge us for it. So that's another good added service from one of our vendors.
I'm not sure, but I think when it comes to seats, I think the Peak seats might be a little bit better than the Teflons. I'm not 100% sure on that though. That might be like the next small upgrade.
Yeah,
from
there's Peak seats, which I'm not sure if the Peak seats and the next seats are the same thing. Like the sharp ball valves that we have are the Next and NXTs, so they might be the equivalent to what some people refer to as the Peak seats.
Doug, I know that you've been threatened not to go over an hour, but I have one more.
Okay.
I know when you're waiting on the counter, a lot of times it's runners that are coming in, or they have a little piece of paper that says, I want a 1-inch brass ball valve.
And if they don't have the application on there, it's very tough to actually choose the right ball valve.
What?
Well, and like
So
I said,
what do we do? Send somebody away? Make them call back?
if they have the phone with them, that's the first thing. I mean, there's a lot of runners that have the phone and say, well, let me check with so-and-so. And if they're able to get a hold of the person, they can actually tell them, well, it's for potable water. Because it makes a difference, you know. We can kind of say, well, if they're looking for a brass ball valve, do you know if it's for potable water? No. Well, we can assume that it might be and give them a red-white. Then again, they could be looking for a brass or bronze ball valve, and it's for steam. Now, all of our brass and bronze ball valves have a steam rating, but there's also that possibility they're going over the 150 psi rating for it. So there's no good answer, especially if they don't have a phone with them. You kind of just do the best you can. I would say at this point the most important thing is that potable water law. You don't want to send somebody a regular FBV ball valve and then have them coming back 2 days later saying, well, I can't install these. These are not lead free. You know, you wasted their time, and now you're wasting our time. Or I don't want to say you have, because you didn't have enough information to go with. But when you're at the counter and you're presented with that opportunity, my recommendation is to err on the side of potable water.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah, because if it's steam, you're hoping that somebody's saying, I want it to be a carbon steel ball valve.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, I think Rich can attest to the fact that those coming into the counter are often like they're clueless.
Yeah. And if anybody's
so much enthusiasm.
If anybody's unfamiliar with how to bring up the lead-free ball valve, it's pretty simple. You just put in ball, you put in lead. You're going to get this whole listing of ball valves that IPS stocks. Now that list would be shorter if I would put in a size of what they're looking for. But if they're looking for it to be for potable water, or they're specifically saying lead-free or low lead, put in lead in your description to narrow your search.
The valve you have up on the screen, the Milwaukee, I'm assuming red port means that's not the color of it. So what's the difference between a full port and a reducing port valve?
Or a standard port.
Very, very good question. And it just so happens that this will help us answer that
Scott, you can help with this.
Okay, so the R in the description of the valve, or the product valve, the 20 CSOR, the R is standing for reduced port. Another name for reduced port is standard port. Most valves out there, up to a certain point, even if it's listed as a reduced or standard point, is still going to be full port. But there is going to be that crossover when you get to a certain size. In this particular valve, it's full port up to 1/2 inch. It's still considered a reduced or standard port valve, even though the reason why it's still full port is you can see the A dimension. The A dimension's right here, showing you what the opening size of the ball itself is. So on 3/4 or on 1/4 inch, you can see that it has a 3/8 opening. It's actually larger than full port. The size of the valve is what you're going to consider to be the full port of a valve. So 3/8, you can see the 1/4 inch and 3/8 have the same size opening, 0.375, which is 3/8, and then 1/2 inch has the 1/2 inch opening as well. So whenever you're dealing with the pipe size, that's what you're going to be looking for whenever somebody's saying full port. Now, a lot of our valves have full in the description if they're full port. So you put full ball, and you can get a whole list of valves that pop up. Now, I think this may have been something that changed with some of our valves, you know, just recently. I know the Watts always had it in their description, but I think maybe some of the red whites may have had it added recently. So that's one thing to consider. you can see the CSORs. Whoever added the full port to it did add it to up to 1/2 inch in the description, even though the product code, the 20 CSOR, is listed reduced. It can get kind of confusing. So if you can't figure it out by the spec, please ask me, ask your manager. Doug Bentleyon and Bob Staub are another 2 good resources for finding out whether a valve is full port or reduced port, if there's a question about it. So, but
Well, what's the advantage or disadvantage of having one against the other?
the flow through the valve. A lot of people their CV ratings, which I admittedly don't understand CV ratings 100%, but CV rating is an indication of what flow you can get through your pipe or through a particular valve. So if it's full port, you know that you're getting the most flow through that valve. It's going to be the same as the rest of the pipe that it's attached to. If you do a reduced port, all of a sudden you're restricting that flow. So once it comes out, all of a sudden now your flow is going to be less than when it had entered the valve. So that's going to be the difference between full port and reduced port, and why you would want to use one versus the other. But there's a lot of applications it doesn't matter, and the customer really doesn't care. But there's some applications that are very critical, and they're saying, no, it must be full port. We need a full port valve.
Will a reduced port wear out faster now than a full port because it works harder?
I don't know. I mean, logic would dictate that yes, it should, but the way that the reduction is done on a valve is done before it gets to the seals. So when you look at it from that perspective, it shouldn't wear out the seals any faster, being reduced port.
You could have that lip wear away, possibly round it off and maybe create an opening, but
yeah, I don't know that they've ever done a study with a full port versus a reduced port, in there. I've never seen one saying that a full port valve is going to last longer, but it's going to have more friction because it's obviously has more, it's reduced an area down. So
does that affect your pressure rating at all then? Because it's going to be going into a
Yep, a reduced
tighter
port
choke.
Yeah, it's kind of like when your hose, a garden hose. You reduce the opening on a garden hose, you're automatically increasing the pressure that you're outputting now because of that restriction there. So it's the same deal with your a reduced port valve. Your pressure rating, your flow's gone down, but your pressure rating's gone up for the valve, or after the whatever's going through it, whether it be water, gas, whatever going through that valve.
Which is why CV ratings are a pain in the butt.
Yes,
They
yes,
control
and I'm glad there's
pipe size,
engineers that
flow.
you can go to. So all the people that Milwaukee, Sharp, all the valves we represent, if you ever come across where somebody's saying I need the CV rating, we go back either to the manufacturer's rep or the manufacturer, and they can get that for us.
Thanks, Doug. That was very informative.
thanks, Doug.
You did a good job,
Yes,
didn't
you
you?
did. Awesome job.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for the questions.
And we forgot to video this last time.
You forgot
Maybe.
to video it.
I don't know. Is it on?
Yeah, he turned it on. He said turn it off, and then we'll turn it on again for the next session.
How do you do that?